My name is Gerry Ryder. I work with the Australian National Data Service, and my role is to support data librarians, data managers, and others working with research data and institutions to help manage and publish their research data. Current status of data discovery is one that I would call quite well established, but still with some significant activity underway. So by data discovery, I guess what we mean is it's about making data findable in the same way as a library catalogue makes library resources findable. And a key aim of making data discoverable is enabling the reuse of data. And for data to be discoverable, then the data or the metadata that describes it needs to be published. There needs to be a mechanism for people to actually find the data. And those descriptions need to be descriptive enough to enable people to find the data. So having meaningful titles, good descriptions, subject headings or keywords, that sort of information really helps discovery. And it's also useful to provide some information that will help people assess whether they want to reuse the data. So for instance, is it in a format I can use, or are there conditions tied to the reuse of the data? In terms of data discovery services, well, there's actually a plethora of those already available in both Australia and globally. They're commonly known as repositories or data catalogues. And these are often managed and built along, say, a discipline or research domain line. So we can see tools such as, say, Pangaea, which is a catalogue for the discovery of earth and environmental data. And perhaps more locally here in Australia, the Australian Data Archive, which is for discovery of humanities and social science data. So there are quite a few of these sort of domain-specific repositories and catalogues. Some of them just provide information about the data, so the metadata, to enable discovery, and others will provide direct access to the data itself. We also see that there's a number of data discovery services that are run by, say, universities and data-intensive organisations. So in Australia, again, the CSIRO Data Access Portal is one example. We also see other types such as the Geoscience Australia, which has its data catalogue. Internationally, there's a number two of what I would call aggregating discovery services. So these are services that provide access to several catalogues through a single search interface. Research Data Australia, which is the discovery service run by the Australian National Data Service, is one local example of an aggregated data discovery service. It aggregates descriptions, metadata descriptions from more than 90 organisations in Australia to provide a single discovery interface into that world. There's also resources such as ResData, and that actually is a catalogue of more than 1,000 data catalogues. So an excellent resource for people, I guess, new to the world of data discovery and trying to get a feel for the breadth and depth of the data holdings and data that's out there to be discovered and reused. And something that's probably a bit more current and emerging as a discovery mechanism are data journals. So the primary purpose of a data journal is just to expose and share research data and to formally publish that. So in a data paper, in a data journal, the author or the data producer is focusing on describing the data itself rather than an extensive analysis of the data that you might commonly see in a traditional journal paper. And these are becoming a really great way to discover data and to also find some really great descriptions of that data. And data journals are really gaining momentum now in the scholarly community, and they're being helped along by some high-profile titles coming online, such as Scientific Data, which is the data journal being run by the Nature Publishing Group. So some of the challenges for people involved in data discovery, something I guess that runs across this space is agreement on standards for data description. So discovery relies on metadata description, and what we don't currently have necessarily in the data world are well agreed and developed standards for data description. Some domains perhaps more mature than others, but not as mature across the board in the various domains of research data. But there are a number of bodies working on this and trying to pull together standards and to make standards interoperable. Some like the Research Data Alliance, which is an international initiative, and also within domains. And so we see standards such as the ANZLIC standard, which is very well supported and widely used in Australia, particularly for spatial data. So there's a great deal of activity happening around data discovery. It really is a vital component of data access and reuse, and that in itself is becoming increasingly recognised as having great benefits for researchers, but also for the broader community.